Alrighty, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Trademark Sports Podcast, heading into round 5 of the NRL season. How good is rugby league? Today, we're just going to talk about a whole range of topics, really. So, just some stuff in the news about Leichhardt, where's Reece Walsh going, some other things about the open market, my tips for the weekend, and then answering your guys' questions. So, without further ado, if you're excited for this episode, excited for this weekend of rugby league, it's going to be a lot of wet weather footy, seemingly. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more, and leave a comment about how much your team's going to win by this weekend. So first off, there's been a lot to be made of in the news recently about Leichhardt Oval. People New South Wales government claiming they haven't got enough money to rejuvenate. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, they don't have enough money to refurbish. That's the word I'm looking for. Leichhardt Oval. However, our Lord and Saviour, Peter V'landys, has come out in an interview this week and said the NRL might be buying Leichhardt. He said if they wanted to give us Leichhardt, we would be interested absolutely. How good would that be? Because the NRL in itself is buying up so much property, so many assets, that sort of thing. So to put the game in a really strong financial position for the future. And I can't see how this would be a bad thing, to be honest. What have we got? So just Peter V'landys in general has really sort of brought back suburbia for the NRL. I remember, as a Dragons fan, we used to be playing 4 home games at WIN Stadium, 4 home games at ANZ, and 4 home games at Kogarah. It's now been reverted back to 6 or 7 at each of Kogarah and WIN Stadium throughout the season. Brookvale getting more games. I just wish that Redfern, Oval, and Belmore had the facilities for the NRL to have more games there. I mean, Redfern don't get any, but because rugby league in Australia is built off that working class suburbia, the blue collar workers, that sort of thing. So I really can see, honestly, Peter V'landys making it his mission to keep Leichhardt Oval a part of rugby league, and that would be awesome. To be honest, it's like one of the, what they call it, this one of the 7 wonders of the world. It really is a stadium that just screams rugby league, and it's entrenched in rugby league culture. So we'll talk about some interesting transfer gossip, I guess you could call it. So Reece Walsh, rumours have it he's re-signed for the Broncos for 5 years on a $1.1 million deal. However, Reece Walsh is saying it hasn't happened yet, and Kevy has supposedly lost his number. Just a bit of media beat up there. Reece Walsh, he'd probably re-sign at the Broncos for $500K. Honestly, that team is so young and they're building towards the future, towards comps and that sort of thing. I reckon he would have taken unders anyway. But all this has been come out and said, and it was all this speculation about Reece Walsh leaving. Ezra Mam did the exact same thing, said the exact same thing about Kevy. And he re-signed maybe a week later. So I honestly expect Reece Walsh to sign within the coming days. Probably, he's injured at the moment, so there'd be lots of time for him to go in and have those kind of chats. So I honestly wouldn't be surprised if, at least by the time he returns back from injury, which is another couple of weeks, he is re-signed as a Broncos player until 2030. I can't see Reece Walsh playing for anyone else for the rest of his career. Obviously, played for the Warriors, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Some more interesting transfer news surrounding Penrith, because obviously with a champion team like that, everyone's got to get their money, got to get paid. And Taruva is the next player up on the list that wants to get some money. Panthers, obviously, as a winger, don't want to pay him too much money in the salary cap, because you'd have a certain section of your salary cap, I imagine, divvied up towards positions. So wingers might have $1 million of the salary cap. Brian Toto will be taking up so much of that. So Taruva obviously looking to get his bag, because rugby league's not forever. I think it was the Panthers offered him $350K. Or something or maybe less than that, because the Dragons are interested in him for $350K, which I think would be a sensational pickup for the Dragons, or for any club really. He's one of those new age wingers that just gets through a mountain of work. Yes, he's not the biggest man in stature, but have we really seen him have a poor game under the high ball out in the wing? No, I can't recall one anyway. But yeah, Sunia Taruva, it'd be interesting to see where he plays from next season onwards, I believe it is too. So this could be his last year at Penrith. If not, it might have one of those contracts where, just NRL contracts where it wouldn't be able to play it anywhere till 2026 anyway. But I also, again, another one of those players that I can't really see leaving to go anywhere. His best position actually is fullback too. So Is there a chance there at the Dragons? Tyrell Sloan's been playing some bloody good footy, so maybe not so much anymore. But yeah, I do think Taruva, like, if he wants to play fullback, I think he'll leave. If he wants to stay on the wing, then perhaps he will stay at Panthers. And as well, Zach Lomax has been released by the Dragons from the 2025 NRL season. So this will be his last season at the Dragons. Like, on one standpoint, I think it's like, look, it sucks as a Dragons fan, and for the Dragons that are losing such a quality player, really good in his position, especially in the wing. He's been killing it this season. But in saying that, part of Shane Flanagan coming in there is to develop a new culture, new aura, new energies around the club. And if there's a guy there who doesn't want to be there and he's being toxic to the environment, get rid of him. He's on like $800K a year for a winger, which is ridiculous. I think there is such a good player in Zach Lomax. We are starting to see that this year. Like, his name is genuinely being tossed up in Origin talks, and it's not as a joke anymore. I do think Zach Lomax is a very, very good footballer. Would love to see him stay at the Dragons and sort of like change his mind throughout the season. But again, if he doesn't want to be there, go. I honestly, I hold the same energy with Ben Hunt. I know he's a fantastic player. So Zach Lomax, probably, honestly, our two best players in that top 30. But if you aren't willing to put in the hard yards and give you everything for that jersey, then respectfully, you can piss off. Next thing I want to talk about is Jai Arrow. So he required a surgery on that shoulder, which means he won't return most likely for 2024, which is a devastating blow for the Rabbitohs. I think they've honestly looked a little bit lost without him there. You've got Jacob Host, like, he does a job, you feel like he does a role on that edge. You also got Tallis Duncan, who I think probably will get a lot more minutes now that Jai Arrow is seemingly out for the season. But I think what it really sort of spells for me is that Koloamatangi will go back over to the right edge, and like that, he's so good out there. Gets more ball, a lot more damaging ball runner. And once you add Campbell Graham and Tyrone Munro back onto that side, yeah, Bunnies, they'll be all right. Obviously haven't started the season as they would have expected. We'll get to it a little bit later. I think they also suffer another loss for this round. But yeah, I think the Bunnies will genuinely be all right. Jai Arrow, it's unfortunate for him. It's, again, good for a New South Welshman. No Tino, no Jai Arrow. And the Maroons will still win the State of Origin because that's just the way things go, isn't it? And last thing I sort of want to talk about news-wise is just how awful the bunker call was against the Roosters with JWH, like Jeremy Hargraves, obstructing Dylan Edwards. Now, I know it's come out in the last few days that there's like a clip where they tracked how fast Edwards was going and he gets there in the end, but that's not the point, in my opinion. You can't just, like, he milked it. He's admitted that. He's milked it. And when they're the rules and that's the way the game's played, look, it's just gamesmanship at the end of the day. Like, it's nothing against Dylan Edwards. It's the poor refereeing and the poor refereeing decisions. I think you look at that. So the rule with the lead runners is they have to run through the line. That's exactly what Jared Rea-Hargraves did. Like, what do you actually want him to do there? I guess he could have stopped at the 10-meter line or whatever. But in saying that, it's like, he's done his role. He's done his job. He's out of the way. Dylan Edwards, like, it should be his job to get around him in that instance, to be honest. Like, what, we're going to start sending Jared Rea-Hargraves. He's got to go run down the tunnel before he can, like, line up, take a hit up for the next play, because otherwise he's going to be impeding a player. I think it's a ridiculous call. In the end, did it really, like, I guess, like, in one sense, it sort of cost the Roosters the game, but in saying that as well, if that had have happened, the whole game, the whole complex, like, structure and complexity of the game would be a lot different, so I'm not so sure there. Alright, let's get into our tips for this week. Starting off with Storm versus the Broncos. I've taken the Storm at home. Big ins, Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes. However, they might be rusty. Broncos with Adam Reynolds back looked really, really good last week. They're still missing a couple of big names, which I think is going to hurt them playing Melbourne in Melbourne, and that's why I've gone with the Storm there. We've also got the Dogs versus the Roosters. Look, Doggies, they looked better last weekend, but the Roosters, again, they've started the season a lot better than they have in the last few years, and I think they'll continue that run, and they should win this game, although it will be in the wet, which does favour the Dogs, I guess, because the Roosters like to throw the ball around a bit more, but again, the Dogs also without Jacob Preston, which actually really hurts them. So yeah, Roosters win there. Then it's the Knights versus the Dragons, the Battle of the Steel Cities. I'd love for my Dragons to go up there and get a victory. again, going to be in the wet. Very, very torrential rain forecasted for the New South Wales East Coast this weekend. So, look, that could go either way, to be honest. Fun fact, Jackson Hastings has never beat the Dragons. Yeah, hopefully that keeps up. However, I do think the Knights will win there. And we've got the Rabbitohs versus the Warriors. Rabbitohs are favourites for this game, I believe, which I think is outrageous. Okay, they beat the Bulldogs, but they've looked awful in every other game. They honestly didn't even look that good against the Dogs. The Warriors make their second trip over to Australia for the season. In their first trip, they only narrowly got beaten by the Warriors. I guess it's quite a short flight from Melbourne to New Zealand. New Zealand and Melbourne probably is the way that they flew over. But yeah, I think the Warriors will get the Chockies there. No Metcalf is... like, it's a loss, but also at the same time, the outside backs and that sort of thing are going to get more ball on that left-hand side, and Chance is back, which means that the shifts out to the right are going to be a lot more fluid, and I'm thinking Dallin Tennis-Lesniak scores 2 tries on the weekend. You got Manly versus the Panthers. Manly were awful last weekend against the Dragons, which probably means that they're going to bounce back and give Penrith a scare this weekend. However, I do think the Panthers win despite it being at Brookvale. And you got Dolphins versus the Tigers. Alright, let's look into this a bit more. Over the course of last season and the start of this season, Dolphins' record at Suncorp is a 45% win rate. It's meant to be one of their home grounds, and they don't win like half their games there. I think the Tigers, honestly, win 3 in a row. Come on, the Tigers. Then we got Cowboys versus the Bye there. The Bye travelling up to Queensland Country Bank Stadium. The Titans haven't won a game all year and haven't looked close to winning a game all year. The Cowboys win and win well. Then we've got Raiders versus the Eels. Again, the Eels, I believe, are favourites there, and it's in Canberra with the Raiders. Eels don't have Mitch Moses. They lost to the Tigers last week. Yeah, they might bounce back, but I think the Raiders, again, make light work. Not light work, I shouldn't say that, because they are without a couple of players as well, but I do think the Raiders get the Chockies in that game there. So my tips for this weekend are Storm, Roosters, Knights, Warriors, Panthers, Tigers, Cowboys, Raiders. 8 for 8. Now, let's go into your questions a little bit. Like, honestly, I think there was probably 40 out of the 50 questions about Zach Lomax. So we'll delve a little bit more into that here. But first off, from Braith_Bowskill54, he said, are Para still a chance without Moses? And I'm assuming he means for this weekend. Yeah, I think so, absolutely. Blaze Talangi is a fantastic player. Dylan Brown, again, good. However, they are quite similar in their game styles. Like, honestly, I think coming through, looking at Blaze Talangi, I thought he was honestly like Dylan Brown 2.0. So them playing together doesn't really give you that diversity. Not much of a kicking game, but I think if one of those two can stand up, then the Eels are every chance of beating the Raiders. They've got a fantastic side. Like a guy like Jermaine Hopgood's going to have to step up with the ball playing. But yeah, I think, especially for this weekend, the Eels will be fine without Mitch Moses. Looking into the future, if Mitch Moses is out for the rest of the season, then it's trouble. But I think they'll be fine. They'll scrape through a couple of games. They might lose a couple of games that they should have won if Mitch Moses was there. But look, it's not going to be the end of the world. Then Alex_Mawasi says Takura or Kaltoga, and that's because Ben Takura is making his debut for the Broncos this week, and Kaltoga is making his debut for the Bulldogs. Very different players. One's a big, massive, huge behemoth of a man in the front row. Another one's a damaging ball runner on an edge. I think they're both very, very exciting. Both got like some really nice subtleties to their game. Ben Takura, huge, biggest NRL player of all time, height-wise. Will he struggle with that? Maybe. Athleticism-wise, though, like he's super athletic, super agile, gets across the park really well. I don't think that's really going to hinder his game too much. But Kaltoga, I can honestly see him scoring a meaty this weekend, just off a nice little short ball off Matt Burton's hip. So yeah, get that in your multis there. I think he's a really, really good player. It impressed me in the trials. Then we've got, like, I'm going to highlight these two. There was, again, so many questions here. Cardi1321, he's asked me who's my replacement for Zach Lomax. And James_San_131207 has asked, will Lomax go to Parramatta? Let's just tie these two together. Replacement for Zach Lomax, Kristen Tuipulotu. Yes, Zach Lomax has been awesome, but in saying that, he's been running out of his own end, making good yardage. Christian Tuipulotu can do that. There's also 1,000 juniors at the Dragons that could probably come in and do a similar role to Ruva. If we can land him, thank you very much. I'll have him on the wing. I'm not too concerned. I'm more worried about where we're going to put the rest of the cap. Whether we're going to, because Ben Hunt's off contract too. So you've got $1.6 million realistically just there that you can go off and chase a big dog. So that's what I'm more so excited for. Looking at Zach Lomax's replacement, I'm looking at more of a top 30 spot rather than a wing spot, because I think, honestly, respectfully, quite replaceable. Maybe not. Maybe I'll get proven very wrong. But the other aspect there is the goal kicking too. But we got Cole Flanagan there who can kick goals like an absolute laser. So, yeah. But will Zach Lomax go to Para? Look, the Para players have said, yeah, we want him. We want to play with him. We want to play footy with him. So I can really see that. Selfishly, as a Zach Lomax fan, I want to see him go to a really good club. Selfishly, again, as a Dragons fan, I want to see him go to a good club so we get something good in return. But yeah, teams I can see him going to. Para, the Tigers need a centre. I think the Cowboys would be a great landing spot to him. If you want, because he wants to play centre. Who else you got? You could even go to the Knights, because Dane Gagai probably hasn't got much longer there. I'd love to see him in a Storm system. I think Craig Bellamy definitely get the best out of him, even though he might not be coaching for much longer. Yeah, that's really it, honestly. I can't see him going many other places. There's rumours about that, going to Manly, but I don't think he wants to go play with Tommy Talau for some particular reason. Okay, then we got Tom Burnsy has asked for Rookie of the Year contender now that Lachie Galvin is out. I don't know if he actually is out. A bit of grey area surrounding that sort of thing. Because I thought it was if they miss more than 2 weeks due to suspension. So he's missing 2 weeks. So I don't know whether it's 2 or more than 2. I have to double check that, to be honest. But even still in saying that, we are talking about going into round 5 here. So how do you know he's going to be keeping this up for the rest of the year and be Rookie of the Year and all that sort of stuff that we're talking about here? But apart from that, I think Ethan Strange has been really good so far to start the season. Zach Labart had a great game against the Dolphins. If he can find that form for the majority of the year, then yeah, he'll be up there. Liam Henry, again, another gun. He'll be up there for sure. Jack Bostock. Those are the 4 guys, and I'm probably looking at that. If they can really string together a proper full NRL first grade season, then they'll be knocking on the door if Lachie Galvin is out. However, at the moment, I think from what we've seen in those first 2 or 3 games, yeah, Lachie Galvin's probably going to run away with it. Very, very, very good footballer. So that'll do us for another week of the Trademark Sports podcast. Thank you for tuning in for this week. I know it's a little bit later this week. We had a bit of some just life happened. A couple of delays there. But look, if you're excited for another round of football, leave a comment saying how much your team's going to win by. I said at the start of the podcast. Drop a like if you're watching on YouTube. Leave a 5-star rating if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from. And yeah, basically go the Dragons. Remember to Scotty drink your water. Brabham, do your best and stay dry this weekend. Cheers.